watching the Daily Roundup by People's Dispatch, where we bring you some of the top stories from around the world. Let's take a look at the headlines. Los Angeles school workers launch 3-day strike. UK airstrikes in Iraq killed civilians, reveals investigation. Venezuela Sahrawi Republic signed numerous agreements to improve ties. Sri Lanka secures $3 billion IMF bailout. Thousands of school workers in the city of Los Angeles on Tuesday, March 21, launched a 3-day strike over their long-standing demands of wage increases, better work conditions, and other related issues faced by workers. The workers began their strike early on Tuesday morning at 5 a.m., staging a picket at the LA Unified School District's Van Nuys bus yard. After participating in the picket for about an hour and a half, the workers subsequently proceeded to the various schools in the district to organize further pickets despite an outpour of heavy rainfall. A wide variety of workers were seen taking part in the strike action, including school custodians, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, and other support staff, according to the union representing them, the Local 99 Service Employees International Union. According to the union, which represents more than 30,000 school workers, the workers are demanding a 30% wage hike plus an additional $2 per hour over the next 4 years in the face of massive inflation and drastically higher costs of living in the state of California. It says that an average worker's annual salary of $250,000 is barely over the legal minimum wage and is grossly insufficient for the workers to afford their current living expenses. The substandard wages have pushed many workers below the poverty line, the union said. Furthermore, the union said that workers want more full-time work, respectful treatment, and increased staffing for improved student services. The local government has offered the workers only a wage hike of 23%, along with a 3% cash-in-hand bonus, healthcare, and other benefits. Reports noted that union representatives and government officials have been involved in intense negotiations over the issues, but have been unable to address the workers' demands. The strike launched on Tuesday has affected thousands of schools and hundreds of thousands of students, with one report noting that more than 1,000 schools have been closed and 600,000 students were affected by the strike action. An investigation by the United Kingdom's news outlet The Guardian on March 21, Tuesday, found that multiple airstrikes in the Iraqi city of Mosul, which resulted in the deaths of dozens of civilians, were carried out by the armed forces of the United Kingdom. The investigation directly contradicts the claims by the UK government and military over the years that airstrikes conducted by British armed forces in Iraq targeting terrorist groups such as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria or ISIS were precision strikes and did not harm or kill a single non-combatant. They have repeatedly said that UK forces fought a perfect war against the terrorists and were able to protect ordinary Iraqi civilians from the violence and conflict. The British military instead claims that since it began carrying out airstrikes in Iraq again in 2014, since its role in the 2003 invasion of the country as part of the Western Operation Resolve coalition against ISIS terrorists, it has killed 3,052 terrorists and 0 civilians. The British military further similarly claims that its airstrikes as part of that coalition, which started targeting ISIS in neighboring Syria a year later, killed 1,017 militants and 0 civilians. However, the Guardian's investigation, done in collaboration with the non-profit watchdog Air Wars, says that it has identified 6 airstrikes carried out by British forces in 2016 and 17 in Mosul, which ended up killing civilians. Despite the British denials, the broader coalition admitted to the deaths of 26 civilians in those 6 airstrikes. An additional 2 civilian deaths have been attributed to another airstrike in January 2017, which was reportedly carried out by the British Air Force. Once again, the coalition accepts the civilian deaths, but the British government continues to deny them, insisting that those killed were terrorists. Notably, aside from Britain, all the other Western countries that were members of the coalition, including the United States, have admitted to killing hundreds of civilians in the airstrikes since 2014, which targeted the ISIS terrorists and other smaller terrorist groups. In our third story, the governments of Venezuela and the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic on Tuesday, March 21, signed a number of mutual cooperation agreements in the fields of education, health, water, agriculture, fishing, environment, arts and culture, and more. The agreements were signed in Caracas during the visit of the Sahrawi leader Brahim Ghali to the Latin American country. Among the agreements signed, the ones in the education sector will reportedly facilitate the arrival of thousands of Sahrawi students to pursue studies in Venezuelan universities. In the agriculture sector, the Latin American country will reportedly start employing Sahrawi men and women in new agricultural projects started in the country, providing them with vital employment and income opportunities. During the visit, the Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said, "We ratify our ties of brotherhood, the mutual admiration between our peoples who fight for freedom, justice, and truth. We also ratify the historical, unique, and absolute position of Venezuela to support self-determination, independence, and the solution of the issue of the Sahrawi people." He further noted that the agreements signed by the two leaders should translate into direct people-to-people contact and relations. Similarly, Ghali expressed the support of his people for Venezuela against the blockade and unilateral sanctions imposed by the United States. He noted that the cause of my people is the cause of the Venezuelan people. The entire Sahrawi people are proud to belong to such a noble and prestigious tradition of struggle and have yearned for freedom and independence inspired by the homeland of Bolivar. The signing of these important agreements expresses its impulse to intensify the just cause of the Sahrawi people. Additionally, he paid tributes to Simón Bolivar, the historic leader of the Bolivarian Revolution, as well as to Hugo Chavez, the widely popular contemporary socialist leader of Venezuela. And in our final segment, Sri Lanka has secured a bailout package of around $3 billion from the International Monetary Fund. The loan under the IMF's extended fund facility had been in the pipeline after Sri Lanka defaulted on its foreign debt of $51 billion last April. This rescue package would be Sri Lanka's 17th program with the IMF and comes with 6 months after a staff-level agreement. China, India, and Japan, Sri Lanka's top 3 bilateral creditors, reportedly played a critical role in ensuring that the bailout gets approval. The immediate disbursal of $333 million as part of the loan has been approved by the IMF. The office of Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that up to $7 billion in loans can be secured from the IMF as well as other international financial institutions after the approval of this package. A progressive section in the country has long warned that the IMF package will not solve the structural issues of Sri Lanka's economy. Writing in March, analyst Devaka Gunawardena, Nityaniti Kardamigar, and others had predicted that compared to its 16 previous IMF agreements, Sri Lanka's adjustment this time around will cause an entirely different scale of suffering. The country is now at the whims of its creditors, while the elites counsel bitter medicine to people who are nearing an economic cliff. After a contraction during 2022 on the order of 1/10 of its GDP, the economy could shrink on a similar scale in 2023. This so-called solution, they wrote, will have dire political consequences. Meanwhile, the IMF mandated austerity measures implemented by the government, including increased taxes and privatization of state assets, has invoked a series of protests across the country. On March 15, thousands of workers from the public sector, including the railways, hospitals, schools, and ports, observed a complete nationwide shutdown on a strike call announced by more than 40 trade unions. The Wickremesinghe-led government has been justifying the increase in taxes as necessary to strengthen state revenues and the increase in electricity charges as a means to cover the cost of production. On March 8, he told the parliament that such difficult reforms were needed to remain on course for the IMF bailout. And that's all we have for today's episode. For more such stories, visit our website peoplesdispatch.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.